When most people think of 2011 in the news, they probably think of Kim Kardashian's divorce, or maybe the tsunami in Japan. But there's a lesser-known disaster that was buried in the subtitles of the 24/7 news coverage of Beyoncé's baby announcement, the Norwegian butter crisis. Basically, a warm, rainy summer in Norway led to a poor farming season. This left significantly less grass for the cows to graze on, and in turn, the cows produced 20 million fewer liters of milk, which equals less butter. Inconveniently, demand for butter rose by 30% that year. And as Norway usually produces plenty of butter to meet internal demand as well as profit through exports, tariffs are high on imported butter. So butter prices go through the roof, and naturally, a black market developed. At one point, a single pack of butter cost around $50. There were numerous accounts of individuals caught smuggling butter into the country, and students were even found auctioning it off to pay for alcohol. A state of emergency was declared, and there was an international movement to send butter to the deprived Norwegians. The butter crisis was finally resolved in 2012, and prices returned to normal, but by then the news story didn't stand a chance to the media coverage of Gangnam Style, which was already taking over the globe. Okay, so what? Maybe you're a vegan, or maybe your friend told you Norwegian pastries aren't even that good. Turns out what happened with the Norwegian butter crisis has much more serious global implications. The French butter crisis. But on a bigger scale, it's a reflection of a feedback loop directly perpetuated by climate change. It all starts with the greenhouse effect. Earth starts with a set amount of energy given off by the sun, absorbed by land and water, and then reflected back to space as outgoing long-wave radiation. This redistribution of energy is referred to as Earth's energy budget. When greenhouse gases such as carbon dioxide and methane accumulate in the atmosphere, however, they absorb the outgoing energy and reflect it back to Earth, and it's then this excess of thermal energy that's responsible for raising temperatures. Our human increase in fossil fuel consumption is the largest contributor to greenhouse gas emissions, and combined with methane emitted from livestock, 80% of greenhouse gas emissions are accounted for. And it's these greenhouse gases that cause warmer summers and drought, killing crops and affecting the cattle. But here's the catch. Agricultural emissions are responsible for almost a quarter of the world's greenhouse gas emissions in the form of methane and nitrous oxide. Methane is released as a byproduct of cow manure, and nitrous oxide runoff is a result of nitrogen-based fertilizer, which converts nitrogen in the soil to nitrous oxide at a much faster rate, allowing for maximum plant growth. However, when the organic matter is decomposed, nitrous oxide is released back into the atmosphere with 300 times the heat-trapping capacity of CO2. Even worse, recent studies have found that increased rainfall in the tropics is responsible for enhanced microbial activity, more than doubling methane emissions in the past 2 decades. Additionally, water runoff containing fertilizer has been found to leak into groundwater, infiltrating lakes, streams, and wells. And all of this isn't even accounting for CO2 emitted from the transportation, packaging, and distribution process. So together, all of this leads to the greenhouse effect, which warms the earth and kills the crops that the cows eat, but the cows produce methane, and dairy transportation emits fossil fuels, which leads to the greenhouse effect, which warms the earth and kills the crops that the cows eat, but the cows produce methane, and dairy transportation emits fossil fuels, which leads to the greenhouse effect, which warms the earth and kills the crops that the cows eat, but the cows produce methane. Okay, moving forward. Now, there are 2 obvious takeaways from this. 1, why spend money on college when you can instead stockpile butter for black market resale in 10 years? Or 2, maybe we need to take a closer look into the long-term sustainability of the processes which facilitate our way of life in order to preserve the earth in the long run. Norway is only one of many examples. Currently, France, the Czech Republic, and New Zealand are facing similar predicaments. Unless we start putting our energy and innovation towards long-term solutions, far more of Earth's resources than just croissants are at stake. However, the future is hopeful. New waste management regulations in Europe have effectively reduced the amount of methane release. Additionally, new research into non-nitrogen-based fertilizers is making for less hazardous agricultural practices. While we're still far from where we need to be, increased policies monitoring the amount of greenhouse gas emissions produced are helping pave the way to more sustainable resource management. The Greenhouse Gas Protocol has put forward a set of global guidelines for companies and cities with the goal of tracking and reducing greenhouse emissions from the agricultural sector. We play a huge role as consumers as well. Minimizing our large-scale environmental impacts starts with paying attention to our day-to-day actions. Making a conscious effort to eat locally, minimize packaging, and support sustainable practices can all help to shift demand towards a more sustainable future, with plenty of butter.